Housewifely Duties by Trish Palmer. Nedra is a demure middle-aged lady, well-dressed in a conventional, unimaginative way. Her husband Henry has recently died. We join her as she is packing her suitcase, carefully folding her dull daytime clothing, but paying particular attention to her very sexy underwear. All is not as it seems.
I'm going on a trip, while the nice men from the moving company shift all my belongings to my new home. Their boss is very, very good at moving people. I've been most impressed. Henry and we bought this lovely cliff-top house just after we were married. Henry was so pleased. He loved having his own home. He used to say that the only way he'd ever leave here was in a box. It's funny how things turn out. You should be very careful what you wish for, you know. When we got the house, it was a bit unloved. We soon fixed that. Young, newly married energy, we used our imaginations in every room. Good thing we extended the laundry when we first moved in, or that might have been a bit interesting. It wasn't just the dryer that got tumbled in there. The trouble with getting married, people start expecting things. It's all right before you get married. You can behave in certain ways and people just smile and wink, or they sigh and say things like, I remember those days, with this faraway look in their eyes. Henry and we made a good pair. He came from the better side of town, lots of fancy houses with private gardens. No one noticed what we were up to, not like in the street where I grew up. I couldn't do anything without being seen. Old Mrs. Harmon would waggle her finger at me. "Who was that boy I saw you behind the rubbish skip with last night?" Funny how she didn't recognise her own son when he had his trousers off. There's so much to do when you're getting married. I remember I had to visit that really nice tailor for the men's suits. Every tiny decision needed a special visit, though Henry only needed to come along once, and that was for the fitting. One thing I don't understand is why they call those cubicles dressing rooms, when the first thing you do in them is to get undressed. Then there was the best man. I liked that he was very serious about making sure everything was perfect, including the bride. Henry and I got married in a church. My mother insisted. She said it might make me curb my heels a bit, and she was right. I mean, I couldn't do anything in the church. It's just not that kind of place. All holy and serious. The acoustics make everything echo back. Seriously, who wants to hear themselves like that? Ugh! Outside the church was no better. All those graves and dead people. The headstones weren't wide enough to give any privacy at all, but that's okay. The Sunday school is usually a good bet for a bit of religious teachings. Not sure why it's called Sunday school, though. I could attend any day of the week. The teacher was really religious, teaching me about the commandments. I thought there were only 10, but, 11 and 12 were much more fun. My Henry, he used to say he was lucky to have me. He wasn't tall or handsome, but he took care of me. Well, most nights, and he had some special talents that no one else could see. We booked a nice place for our honeymoon. The brochure made it look really good. We took the van. 2 nights for a honeymoon, just a quickie really. Anyway, we didn't get there. You know how it is, things happen. We set off okay, but a few miles up the road we pulled off into a lay-by and, well, at least now I know why it's called a lay-by. We didn't have far to drive home afterwards. Our marriage started off perfectly. Henry would go off to work, wishing me a good day and telling me to keep busy. It was so nice to have his blessing. I had a bit of a routine, just normal housewifely duties. You know, chores. Well, someone has to. Mondays was either mechanic day or visit the hairdresser. And what that hairdresser could do with a hairdryer just blew my mind. Of course I believe in the sanctity of marriage, for better or worse. One husband at a time and all that. That's why the car mechanic and I could only get down to nuts and, well, you know, every second Monday. He's married and said he wasn't free, but it turned out all right because his wife started attending gym classes every second Monday. She received a free membership anonymously in the mail. Such good value. It's lovely when husbands and wives have the same kind of interests. She was getting exercise at the gym while he was being a contortionist for me. Isn't that sweet? He was quite the craftsman, proud of his work. His floor routine definitely improved with practice. Tuesdays was what I like to call my meat and potatoes day. First stopped the butcher. His rump was always top class. Then on to the greengrocer, and what he couldn't do with vegetables. His nickname was Lucky, and he always was. Some said he was a bit bananas, but I thought Lucky was a real peach. On the way home, I'd get a lottery ticket. They say you should buy a ticket when you've had a lucky day. Wednesday was doctor day. Henry wanted children and asked our doctor if he could help. So every Wednesday morning off I'd trot, and that nice doctor, he tried, he really did. He assured me he was happy to help, especially since Henry had personally asked him. Of course, I was a wee bit naughty. I didn't tell him everything, like, well, that I was on the pill. But he never actually asked me, so that was all right. Thursday was tradesman day. I'd ask Henry who needed to come, and he'd choose. I'd wait with bated breath. It was so exciting, like a lucky dip, you know. Would it be the chimney sweep? He liked dark places. Or the window cleaner, so good at polishing. Or maybe the gardener. Not flash at trimming hedges, but really down to earth. Everything came up smelling of roses. My favourite, though, was the electrician. And now I know why they're called Sparkies. Friday was house cleaning day, ready for the weekend. The cleaner was really fussy at making sure every room, every nook and cranny was ready. Nothing was safe from his advances. My Henry, he was such a dear. His weekends were ours, and we'd use them for R&R. You know, rest and recreation. It's good to rest between recreation. Sadly, it couldn't last forever. Henry was just starting to get a bit set in his ways. Not so keen to try new things. Getting home from work a bit late, too tired to give me much attention. I prayed for an answer, and happily fate intervened. It's funny how things work out just fine. I couldn't believe it. We won the lottery, the big one. Millions, all ours, Henry and me. It was so amazing. Henry got a bit overexcited. Quite uncharacteristic of him, really. He started pacing around the lounge, muttering about life changing. It was really strange. He said something about half each, and that was odd. We'd always had our money together. He became a bit agitated, talking gibberish. I got him out onto the balcony to get some fresh air. It was a clear, starry night, with wonderful views down the cliff and over the sea. Sadly, it didn't help. The idea of all that money just sent my dear Henry wild, ranting. I tried to give him a hug, but he pushed me away. It was then that I knew he had really had gone crazy. He never ever pushed me away before. I don't really remember what happened next. All I know is that I tried to hold him steady against the balcony rail. That was hard, but it turns out I'm much stronger than I look. Anyway, he tipped back suddenly, over the rail, and my feet somehow got under his legs, lifting them up. He overbalanced. I had to duck to avoid his clutching hands. He toppled over the rail and down, down, down the cliff. I couldn't look. My dear Henry, broken and splattered on the rocks below. They took him away in a box, just like he'd wanted. They called it a terrible accident. That nice policeman who I'd helped once before, he was a very thorough investigator. He said lottery wins can make people do some really crazy things, even murder. He spent ages going over everything, just like before. I was very good and promised him that he could come back any time. The victim support man was really good too. He knew just what to do to support a lady like me. Henry's funeral, it was a bit bigger than I'd expected. There were all these very pretty young women who were his associates. They seemed genuinely upset and spoke so well of Henry that he was kind, thoughtful, energetic. Funny word to use about work, energetic, but I'll think well of him for it. Henry's will was a bit of a surprise, but just shows what a dear he was, so thoughtful and kind. He left a few unexpected little gifts to some of those girls. I didn't mind. It's nice they have something to remember him by. One girl got the rug from his office. Apparently she'd always liked its size and softness. Another got his office chair. He said she'd knew how to make good use of it. Strangely, he left his favourite leather belt to his receptionist, and all the shaving stuff he kept at work went to his private secretary. That was odd, but she seemed pleased and said she'd remember my dear Henry always. Anyway, it's time to move on. I've sold the house. It's hard leaving all those lovely men who have helped me with my housewifely duties over the years, but each and every one of them made the goodbye memorable in their own special way. I've decided to make the most of my life. No more housewifely duties for me. It's time to start my adventures. There's a whole world out there, and I'm off to explore all mankind. Well, maybe not all,